Yeah, the very beginning is the script, obviously. We read it, we study it. I usually let it sink in before I start doing any sort of costume count, changes, day changes, whatnot. I want to feel the story and interpret what the writer was trying to convey. So it starts there. And then really important early on is conversations with the director. And if you're lucky, the director will also be the writer.
We are the
Get Reelisms Podcast.
I am Adam Chase Rani.
And I am Christine Chen. And surprise, we're both filmmakers.
We get into it by sharing secrets, advice, and gossip in filmmaking.
And we even get our other filmmaking friends to share theirs too.
So please, everybody, join us for
an ode
to
filmmaking.
My first costume designer on the show. So
actually, wait a second, Christine. For some reason, my OBS just crashed. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
Okay. Sorry, technical difficulties.
It's tech, y'all. It's not my fault, I promise.
Why did your OBS crash?
I don't know. It just said, hey, this failed. I don't know what happened. Okay, let's stand by. Okay. I am really sorry, guys. Okay. We're recording again. Are we streaming? The stream should still be up.
Yeah.
I'm
checking. Yeah, it's up still.
On Facebook?
I see it. Yeah.
On Facebook, yeah? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
so then we are recording. Okay. All right. Sorry, Christine's going to find a new co-host after this episode. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do it one more time with the intro. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Get Reelisms Podcast, episode 146. My name is Adam Chase Rani.
And I am still Christine Chen, and we still have an awesome guest named Carole who is going to introduce herself.
Yes, my name's Carole Jones, and I'm a costume designer for film and television.
Awesome. And I was just saying that I'm excited to have Carole because Carole is our first costume designer on our podcast. We've had directors, we've had DPs, we've had gaffers, grips, and HMU, but we have not had a costume designer. So very excited about that. To learn about first. The process. Lucky first.
Yeah.
So Carole, where are you based out of?
Yeah, I'm based out of Los Angeles, California, where a lot of television is filmed here, some movies as well.
Yeah, so you're a transplant from?
Washington, D.C.
Yeah. And so can you walk us through a little bit about how you even got into costume designing?
Yeah, so I always had a love for the arts. And in DC's very government. So film and television, when I was growing up wasn't, in my backyard. But I saw it on TV, was always a big fan of movies, definitely felt their influence as a child. But I honed in more on drawing and making things with my hands, more of the visual arts. And so I went to college for fashion design because I really didn't know that costume design could be a field for me. Like, how do you even get into that? I didn't realize that was a job that one person can do. So my path wasn't a straight linear one to film and television, but it definitely was one that got me there. All roads lead to the same place, if that's where you want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started my career in fashion design, actually, before moving into film and television. But it's when I was in college, it was my senior year, that I then was introduced to really the world of theater. And I got that bite then. I ended up costuming some local theatrical plays, community theater, nonprofit theaters. And I got that bite then. But, my degree was in fashion design, and it was the recession when I graduated. And so I was applying for jobs all over the place, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, using, relatives' addresses or my friends' addresses. So they thought I lived there.
Local. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And I got a bite in LA, and I'd been here before to visit my brother, and I knew I really liked it. And so my path led me out here. But yeah, I started in fashion. So it was a recession, like I said, and I was applying to theater jobs, but I got my first bite from a fashion company. And I was very fortunate at that time. The economy was really challenging. It was hard to find work for anyone. When I graduated college, my mom was like, "Why don't you apply at the supermarket?" I was like, "No." She just wanted me to have an income coming in, and I'd worked at one in high school.
A parental thing.
Yeah, parental thing. She just wanted to know her baby had money to eat. Like that was right after I moved to LA. But I got really fortunate, and I got a job actually at Forever 21 corporate headquarters when I first graduated. Yeah. So I went down that road first. It took a while for the country to come out of the recession. So I was so lucky that I even got a job in design in my field that I graduated with a degree in.
What was your first job in television? And do you remember?
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Well, like I said, my first taste for costume design was in theater.
Right.
And I did a few plays my senior year. But it wasn't until I'd already been in LA for about a decade did I really start. Yeah, did I really start getting into film and television?
Okay.
But things work out for a reason. I think that was the right path for me because all my experience in fashion design really prepared me for costuming.
Okay.
But I'll get back to that because I want to answer your question. So after I'd been here a decade, I felt ready to really start dipping my toes into that water and figuring out how to get on set because it's not spelled out to us, I think, in the country. Like Hollywood is very elusive, entertainment film.
Nebulous.
Yeah, but I'd been here a decade, so I made lots of friends. I played, adult co-ed kickball, like lots of different sports, softball, where I met different people. So one of my good friends is a Hollywood red carpet interviewer, for instance. And then I've met actors. Another friend of mine is a location manager. And so when I was really ready to make that transition, I just started asking everybody I knew if they heard of any opportunity, if they knew of anything, like please pass my name along.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually how it happened. So it was a good friend of mine that's a location manager, also an actor. Mm-hmm. I spoke with him, but it wasn't until probably 5 or 6 months later did something come of that conversation. Yeah. He worked with a costume designer on a music video, and she was looking for somebody on a different project. She was looking for somebody to fill in for her on set. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "Hey, just message her, say you know me, and that we worked on X, Y, and Z together project." Mm-hmm. And so that's basically how it happened. I was introduced to somebody who gave me an opportunity.
Very, very cool. And since then, I know because you're my friend. How did you get into the Academy Gold? Tell us a little bit about that and the program for that, and how has that helped you with your career thus far?
Sure. Yeah, so the Academy Gold Rising program is put on by the Academy of Motion Picture. And it's only about 7 or 8 years in since they started it. So it's constantly evolving. But basically, it's for early career talent development. And that may be people who just finished their bachelor's degree or people who have their master's degree or recent graduates. I've been in the industry about 4 years now myself, and I got my degree a long time ago, but I'm an avid believer in continuing education. Mm-hmm. You're not going to know everything. So I just love to learn, and I'm constantly researching and studying and just practicing my craft. And so my degree was really focused a lot on women's fashion, or just with a couple of classes in menswear.
Sure.
And so I thought, why don't I go ahead and take some classes over at LA Trade Tech? And they have a whole certification program for menswear tailoring, which is men's suit making. Not to be confused with alterations. Tailoring refers to suit making. And so I thought, I have nothing to lose. They do classes on the weekends, evenings, and it just keeps me sharp and practice. So I was in this program, and it's my teacher in that class spoke of Academy Gold. And he said, just apply. And I was so busy when that was going on. I was prepping for a show and then taking this class at night. But I forced myself. I was like, he said just apply. And it was like the 11th hour, but I got my application in, and I'm so happy I did. So the program basically is, like I said, early career development. You get mentorship from Academy members. Okay. It's a 2-month intensive. And so there's different series of workshops, panel discussions with industry executives. So that might be somebody from casting or sound, somebody who does Foley, costume designers, for instance, DPs. So it was really like in-depth conversations and one-on-one mentorship. And during the summer, we also made a short film ended up being about 18 minutes long. Mm-hmm. And the writer was one of the former Nichols Fellowship winners from a previous year. So that was fantastic. And then post-summer, they assign each of us one-on-one mentors. So my mentor at the moment is Kim Barrett. She's costume designer for The Matrix, Romeo plus Juliet, Aquaman. Yeah, so it was fantastic. I'm so glad I applied. I feel like this is going to be really life-changing for me. Like the effects of being in this program will echo for years to come.
Yeah. So you speak about mentorship. Like why is mentoring or finding a mentor important in this industry?
I think it's important just so you can have your own ideas, right? But nothing beats practical experience, obviously for yourself directly on set, but then also somebody who has much more experience than you and can help navigate you through the industry, because it can be challenging, and it helps to know what those roadblocks might be or those hurdles might be. Mm-hmm. It's long hours on set. This industry is not for the faint of heart. Costumes especially can be very laborious. You'd be surprised. It's not just sketching and sewing and drawing. You're outsourcing. You may have to go all over the city to find what you're looking for in the right size if you're not constructing it yourself. Clothing weighs a lot. I'll go, if it's a contemporary film and we're shopping for it, I will easily do 12,000 steps in a day and make multiple trips to my car carrying heavy bags, or pulling from the costume house even. But and Kim, she is a mother as well, and raised children while working in the industry, and so she just gave me some insight to how she navigated that too. If one is curious to have a family, how do you juggle both? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's been something that's of interest to me too. So I'm like, it's impossible, but I know people do it.
People do it. Yeah, people definitely do it. One of the mentors at the Academy, Joe, he's a cinematographer. He raised 2 children as a single father, and one of them was special needs, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
So what quickly what is your typical process? Like, okay, you get a script, and what goes on from there?
Yeah. So the very beginning is the script, obviously. We read it, we study it. I usually let it sink in before I start doing any sort of costume count, changes, day changes, whatnot. I want to feel the story and interpret what the writer was trying to convey. So it starts there. And then really important early on is conversations with the director. And if you're lucky, the director will also be the writer. because that can really help. But yeah, talk with the director early on. Try to get into their head. What were they thinking when they wrote this story? What was the mood? Did they have ideas of music? Music will really set the tone. What music are they envisioning here? They may come with ideas for costume already. You may or may not like it, but usually if you keep asking more questions, you'll find the little germination in the beginning, like where that idea spun from. So ultimately, you want to help convey to the audience what the director's vision is for the story. You come with your own ideas as well. It is a collaboration, but ultimately they're at the helm of all the departments to tell that one story to the audience. And we all have to be harmonious.
Yeah.
So yeah, read the script, talk with the director, then start pulling imagery, tear sheets, photographs. It could be art, it could be paintings, and start establishing a mood board for each of the characters. And then it's constant conversations with the director. You don't just have one. This is constant throughout. And you're going to talk with your production designer. You're going to talk with hair and makeup. Because like I said, everybody has to be harmonious and also adhere to the same color palette as well. Because the costume has to work within the world that has been created by production design. Yeah. So yeah, tears, photos, imagery, then probably start swatching and sketching. And when I say swatching, that means going out and sourcing fabric that could be used for the character. And then, you'll present those sketches and those ideas. And if everybody's on the same page, we're going to go ahead and start constructing prototypes. From prototypes, you're going to do camera tests, lighting tests, because, we want to work all of these things out in advance, like troubleshooting, before we actually get to filming, so that when we're on set and we're filming, it can go as smooth as possible.
Yeah.
And not end up with having to add on extra days to the schedule. Yeah. Of course, that still happens sometimes for various reasons.
That
but
still happens, yeah.
Yeah.
What are your favorite directors to work with? Not necessarily names, but what do they do that make them the people that you enjoy working with, and what kind of directors annoy the crap out of you?
I feel like the biggest thing is communication. And this can be from any department, not necessarily just the director, but communication, early communication, is really, really helpful. Some directors are really involved with the costume process, while others are a little bit hands-off. They may tell you one or two things that they had ideas on and then let you fly with it. I think all in all, just as long as we have communication and the opportunity to review and discuss, because I don't want to take a wild stab at something hoping you'll be happy with it. We don't want to waste our time. We're also very limited on time when it comes to prep. I've been called very last minute. And, you don't want to waste the time or the money either, because if we have that early communication, we could probably do more cost saving things to help preserve the budget, not blow the budget, if that makes sense. Yeah, communication. And like I said, they don't have to be, they could be as involved or less involved as they want, just as long as we're able to convene and be on the same page.
Yeah. And what's definitely, it's probably the same, not communicating is something you hate, but what's another, please don't do this. If I see a director do this, it makes me really mad or something. What's something?
Remember, okay, I would say this. Remember, for everybody in production, I know we make movie magic, but I am not actually a magician. No, I do not. I'm not Mary Poppins. I don't have this big bag that I can just pull costumes, out of. They take time, they take thought, whether it's sourcing it or building it. It's not going to happen in an instant. And I would say another really good thing for success for everybody in filmmaking is bring the cast on as early as possible. When talent is cast last minute, that puts enormous pressure on the costume department. You know, we need time to prepare, to prep, to fit the talent. That's, you know, that's what we call the actors, the talent. Even though we're all talented. Yeah, if you want that character, you know, we all want to see the character portrayed as truly as possible to the story. The character has to fit that narrative, and their costume is part of that narrative. The costume tells a silent story. You know, before the actor even opens their mouth, the costume is conveying to the audience who that person is, where they are in life. And if they're cast early enough, that gives us time to properly portray that for the film. And ultimately, that makes the film that much more believable. That makes the story believable. It'll transport the audience, you know, to this otherworldly, you know, if it's fantasy, you know, sci-fi future, or transport us back in time, you know, to the Oregon Trail, for instance. So if the costumes ring true and authentic to who that character is, the story will be that much more of a success. The film will be that much more of a success. Yeah.
This is a good segue to, I know you hate the term wardrobe, which for me was like a what? Moment, because I used to just call, I'm very aware now of not calling people wardrobe, because wardrobe was just what we would often call the costume department on set. So define why you have such a reaction when people say wardrobe versus, and this is another one I learned, was the stylist. So well, why is a costume designer, why is that term so important to you?
Yeah. So wardrobe is a piece of furniture. It is essentially a closet in which, you know, clothes are stored into. So I can see where the term wardrobe originated from. You know, where are the costumes stored? They're in the wardrobe. But are people wearing wardrobe? No. They are wearing a costume. You know, and costumes aren't clothing. They aren't fashion. They are a catalyst in which, like I said earlier, tells the story. Costumes are different than styling, because styling is purely for aesthetics, right? Someone who wants to look good, feel good, put their best foot forward in their appearance. But a character isn't always that. A character may be, you know, down and out on their luck, right? I think I said this to you the other day when we were having a conversation, that they could be, you know, living out of their car. That's the character. They're in between jobs. They're a young guy, you know, or gal, and their clothes may look a little bit worn. They don't have access to a washing machine regularly, you know, so they're wearing their clothes a little bit more on repeat. And that the clothes have to convey that. They can't be in the latest fashions.
Right.
Yeah, the hippest thing, because that wouldn't ring true to their station in life at that time. Sorry, I tend to sidetrack. But
no, I mean, I think that's relevant. Yeah.
I don't like the term wardrobe because it is a piece of furniture. So I was actually on set this week, and the second AD was talking to the talent saying, "Oh, I want to get a photo of you in your wardrobe." And I'm like, they're not wearing a piece of furniture. That is their costume that conveys character. And I also feel like the term wardrobe kind of diminishes the work that costume designers do, because it is design. It's not just design for character. It's not just clothing. We have to know color theory. We have to know lighting, you know, and pattern. You know, DPs often don't like white on talent. Not to say it isn't used in film. It is, but it's used very strategically, because white can appear very optic and distracting. Like, it'll take all your attention. You'll just like zone in on it on camera. So it has to be used very purposefully. Really busy patterns could be distracting on camera too. So that's also why we do camera tests. But yeah, I just feel like the term wardrobe diminishes the actual work that is being done. It is costume design. The talent, they're wearing costumes.
Yeah.
Not
No,
a
I
piece
think
of
that's
furniture.
important. I think we were chatting and I mentioned that I'd been on a set where it was clear that the person styling was a stylist and not a costume designer, because the character looked amazing in all the frames, beautiful, but it didn't serve the story well, and it took you out of the story because you're just seeing somebody that walked out of a magazine, but they're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be poor, like it
Mm-hmm.
didn't make any sense whatsoever. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely am like, stylist, that makes a lot of sense for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess during this process, do you have anybody that you like look up to, that you love their designs, and why? Why?
Yeah, definitely. So I did mention Kim Barrett earlier,
Mhm.
costume designer of The Matrix. She's fantastic. I've always been a fan of her work because honestly, The Matrix came out when I was like a tween.
Yeah.
And it still affects us today. I mean, it's interesting. Because costume design isn't necessarily about fashion, but it definitely affects fashion.
Right.
Because people are influenced in our culture by TV, film. And so it kind of has a ripple effect to it. But I love her work, especially in that film, because those characters, they had to slip in and out between worlds, right? They're in the Matrix, they're in the real world. And so when she was designing that, her thought process is what fabric would lend itself to that. Trinity kind of looks like an oil slick
Yeah.
on the ground.
Totally.
Her costume is PVC vinyl. It's highly reflective, has shine. She easily looks like she would slip in between dimensions. And silhouette's important too. Her costume is very form fitting, right? So there's nothing inhibiting her doing that, going in between realms. So the aesthetic of the fabric choice itself lends itself to the story, right? She goes in between worlds. And then there's also function to costume design too. In that movie, Keanu Reeves has the long black trench coat.
Right.
And Morpheus as well. But there's scenes where they're flying through air, and the costume has to serve that functionally. I know they fabric tested, like they did camera tests to see how the fabric would flow and move on camera, because we want it to be epic. We want it to be dynamic. And Morpheus's costume, is reminiscent of a cape, right?
Yeah.
They're heroes. They're heroes, but they're in this sci-fi futuristic dystopia world, right? So they're not going to wear a traditional cape like we know Superman, Batman. Their capes are trench coats, and they have like a really wide sweep, like which means like the range in which the costume, the hem of it circles out. So more so than a trench coat you would buy off the rack, right? Things are exaggerated, and it lends us to that fantasy world and the dynamic of them, just flying through air and having action, and also the idea that all this weaponry is hidden, stitched inside, enveloped inside the costume. We're led to believe they've got a whole arsenal on the interior of that costume.
Yeah. Is there anything right now that you are like, I would love to design something for this genre. I would love to do this kind of film for you, and why?
Oh gosh. Costume designers, they aren't limited, just like, actors want to be able to portray lots of different roles, and they can. Costume designers do the same as well. So I am interested in contemporary, period, fantasy. I love it all. I really do love it all. And as we know, variety is the spice of life. But as of late, I've been really into Westerns, and I'd love to costume a Western. Period piece. There's a lot of form and function in those clothes as well. Like when women were headed west on the Oregon Trail, there's no trees on the prairie. Hardly any trees or shrubbery, right? Depending, if they're in the Great Plains. And the women would actually help each other out and use their dresses to shield the other women when they had to go do their business.
Yeah.
So as fashions changed and women were wearing, clothing with less voluminous skirts, or maybe they adopted pants because it was rugged, which would be very wild for a woman at that period, but it happened out on the plains. Did them a disservice because then they had no shield from prying eyes, as silly as that sounds. But yeah, it would be fun. It would really be fun to do a Western. I'm also reading a book about the whaling ship, the Essex, right now, which inspired the story of Moby Dick.
Yeah.
So, which was the great unknown before the migration west. The great unknown was the ocean and the wild beast, the whales that were within it. So yeah, just reading about different subjects definitely inspires me. And yeah, I would love to do a period piece, I guess.
Yeah, you did your recent one was a sci-fi? What was
Yes. Yeah, the most recent film I worked on, which we wrapped in December, it's in post-production now, was kind of a Western, but not in the truest sense. It wasn't the good, the bad, and the ugly, but it was kind of a stoner sci-fi spaghetti Western, meaning, it's kind of like the humor of Cheech and Chong, right? And then old Star Trek, original Star Trek series, like silliness of those early sci-fi films meets a spaghetti Western. So it'll be a lot of fun. It's called Astroplane Drifter. Should be out sometime this year.
Yeah. And what did you refer to design it? Like how long did you had to construct a lot of that stuff from scratch, right?
Yeah, that particular film did call for a lot of costume building because some of the characters were snake people. That was their name, snake people. They were space vampires. Evil galactic warlord named Galaxicon. And the star of that film actually wrote the script, and this movie is it's a comedy spoof. It is a spoof on all those genres I mentioned. So I asked him what influenced him for writing this film, and it really was a lot of those films, like El Topo, that Western El Topo, which is really kind of freaky and wild Western. Yeah, the good and the bad and the ugly, Cheech and Chong. Flash Gordon was an inspiration. The music of Kiss, even the visual costumes of Kiss, I took some inspiration from them for Galaxicon, as well as Klingons from Star Trek. So this particular movie was a little bit unique in that it is a spoof on all these other genres.
Yeah.
So I dived into that, deep dived into that. But that's not always the case. Yeah, that's not always the case for film. It's just this particular film was a comedy spoof on other works.
Yeah.
Which made it super fun. Yeah, super fun
really
and silly.
Fun.
Yeah.
Do you get to keep most of the costumes you design?
Well, productions usually will hold on to that. At the end of the day, it is the property of the production.
Okay.
I did leave all those costumes out there. In Joshua Tree, we filmed out in the desert, which was really beautiful and scenic. It depends. When I've worked on smaller productions, they may not want to keep them or store them. They got the use of what they needed. Sometimes they'll donate to charity if it's contemporary clothes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had some situations where they're like, well, you can keep it if you want it. Well, or just get rid of it. We don't want to have to pay to store it. So just get rid of it. Yeah. So I do have some pieces in my own collection now, but I repurpose them if it makes sense for the project I'm working on.
Yeah.
So it becomes a resource, a valuable resource.
So how many things do you have that you've collected?
Yeah, well, you've seen my my storage. I have a good solid 3 Z racks. Z racks are more of the industrial racks we use on set. So, not a regular like rack somebody might have in their house for overflow. That's multiple garment bags. Then I also have things in my closet under my bed. I have lots of clothes just coming out of every crevice. But I photograph everything. I have an album on my iPhone that I use. And then I'll put in keywords like 80s, 90s, women's, men's, just so I can quickly see what I have. Because when you grow that size of a collection, you kind of forget what's in there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for anybody wanting to get in the industry or into your field specifically, what would you say are the things that you've learned that you would bestow some tips to other people with? And what are like do's and do nots? Let's try do's and do nots in this industry.
Okay. Let me think about it. Well, I totally believe that luck is preparation meets opportunity. So, if you have an interest in something, don't just wait for the opportunity. Take it upon yourself to research, to learn. When you become a costume designer for, multi-million-dollar films, you do have the access to pattern makers, sewers, craftspeople. But until you're at that level, you may have to build things yourself to make your dreams of whatever this costume is going to be come alive. So it is good to have a foundation in those skills. So, practice sewing, draw out ideas, keep a sketchbook, research films, study the good ones, study the bad ones, even to see where things went wrong. AFI has a list of like top 100 films. You could go take a look at that and study that. And I also think it's really worthwhile if you aren't going to go to film school yourself. You study these films, but maybe start a group, a film watching group with your friends, and then you can discuss it. Because I feel like it's one thing to watch it, but then to have a conversation with someone about it. They may view it through, they're another set of eyes. So they're going to have a different interpretation of the film than you would. And it's great to hear somebody else's thought on that. Yeah, something that you may have not noticed yourself in the film. Luck is, like I said before, preparation meets opportunity. You always also need to be networking. Hollywood is very much a word of mouth business. And so, somebody, may help you get an interview for the job, but I do believe that your good work on the job and the right attitude is what gets you hired back. Were you easy to work with? Did you show up on time? Are you able to meet deadlines? You have to be a good communicator, especially as a costume designer, to convey the thought process you're having for what this costume is going to be.
Yeah.
Also in costume design, you got to like people. I think in film as a whole, but especially costume design, because you're working very intimately with these actors. Like you have your conversations with your directors, your DP, but then when you're working with the talent, and they're going to have their own opinions too about who they think this character is. So you have to like people. You have to be receptive to feedback, have that dialogue. It is a collaboration at the end of the day. Like I know we all say, yes, it's the director's movie, but it really is everybody working together that makes that one story, that one vision happen. And anything you see within a frame is not by accident. It's all planned. It's all well thought out. It's all intentional. Yes, exactly. So yeah, you have to be good with people, be receptive to feedback, constructive criticism. You have your not so great constructive criticism sometimes, but just take it with a grain of salt. Every opportunity is a opportunity to learn and grow and to showcase your work and your skills. So, and what's some other things? You have to have a knowledge of the fine arts, definitely. Because even though my work is seen on camera in a performing arts aspect, it really starts with the fine arts, knowing painters, listening to music, Van Gogh, Monet, for instance, Picasso. It all, everything influences everything else.
Yeah.
In my opinion, between performing arts, visual arts, music. Yeah. So if you have, go to art museums, go to shows, see that play, all of this is only going to be beneficial to you and helpful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And attention to detail. Sorry.
No, the attention to detail.
High attention to detail.
High attention. Yeah. I think it was really good to know about like the continuing education aspect. Just taking a class and getting, because those are all skills and stuff that you need, and you never know where you're going to use them. So
It helps.
Yeah. And I guess what's next for you? I hate that question, but I mean, like, it doesn't have to be like now, but like, because
sure,
it's terrible. But like, what if you could have, what are your, I guess, long-term goals? Like, I would love to be on I don't know, insert, fill in the blank.
Well, narrative is the place I want to be. I mean, reality TV, they do hire stylists, for instance, but like we said, styling is more for aesthetics and just, looking good and feeling good. But I like narrative. Feature films, definitely, but I'm not going to say no to television either.
Yeah. What do you say? Yeah. What's the difference? What's the biggest difference working? Because you've done TV, right?
I've done a lot of, I've done a lot of television. Yeah. I actually have a show coming out. It's going to come out next month, actually. It's a spinoff of CSI Miami, but it's the true crime version. So it's going to air on CBS in June. It's part of their summer lineup. So yeah, that's something coming out soon that I worked on, costume designer for. TV is how it differs from film, if you're curious about that, is it's constantly ongoing. And while you are working on shooting scenes for one episode, you're simultaneously prepping for the next. So it can be quite a slog. Very fast paced, very exciting though. But then like film, you have prep and then you're filming. And sometimes scenes change, or sometimes scenes change, or the writer will be tweaking things, and but TV shows are a lot more like,
they work all the same time. So you're never, there's not really like an end point to something. You are or in production, but you probably are prepping for something else already while you're doing it, is what you're trying to say. Yeah,
exactly. But anyway, what was your original question? What's up for me next?
Or like, what are your long-term goals? Like, what would you like to do? Let's manifest it. Besides the Western. I know you want to do a Western.
I do want to do a Western. But I love it all. Like I said, I love it all. I definitely would like to work on more feature films. And then also possibly travel for them to different destinations.
That's what I would love to do, a travel show.
Yeah, that would be really fun. It can be challenging, of course, traveling. Like when I was out in Joshua Tree for my last film, there were, last minute needs that came up.
An actor go get. Yeah.
Exactly. Like an actor decided, or it wasn't conveyed to me early enough that the cowboy boots were too tight fitting in the toe box and hurting their feet. And I remember Andrew looked at me with like pleading in his eyes, like a desperate plead of, please find me new cowboy boots. And they had to be on set at 7 a.m. the next morning. And it was 8 p.m. the night before. And I'm in Joshua Tree, where I don't know the stores. I'm not familiar with that area.
Yeah.
And I was like searching on my phone first for places that were even open,
Right.
and sure, there's always a Walmart in town, but they didn't carry that. They're not going to have cool, stylistic cowboy boots at 8 p.m. at night.
Right.
And I actually ended up at a tractor feed store.
Oh.
Yeah, a tractor feed store that had workwear boots, but, we're out in Joshua Tree. So they had some that looked the style of cowboy boots. And they were actually really nice boots. So they were like about $200. I ran to the store. They closed at 9 p.m. I think I purchased them by like 8:35.
Oh God.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I was there's a lot of like stress. A lot of stress, a lot of last minute demands that come up. But, at the end of the day, it's all really exciting and worth it. My favorite part is, once everything's been designed, I've been envisioning it, and I get the actor there on set and I get them in costume. Once it's on them and they're in the location, it really comes to life. And that's my absolute favorite part. Seeing all the different artists in our medium, all of our work coming together to be this other world,
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah. So mentee, that's what they told me yesterday. She said that her favorite part is when we start rolling, because you see all of the different components come together to build the world, and it's magical. Yeah.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
That is the magic. Once it's all together on
When
camera.
it's all together and we're rolling. And it's not like you're not worrying about everything else. You're now in this world. You see all of it come together in the story. I was like, yeah, you're right. That is like one of the best parts of seeing it all.
Yeah. So satisfying.
Yeah. And it's finally like, okay, all that stress was worth something. Yeah. So and you get to sit back and just enjoy your work that is applied to that specific story in a very hyper specific way. So yeah, for me, one of my it's a little bit different, but one of my favorite moments is honestly watching auditions, because it's the first time that I've heard the words spoken in it, like, and it's like a click of like, okay, this could work, like this holy shit, like this could be a thing. And then the final process of seeing it all come together is also extremely satisfying. So
yeah, I think I'm understanding what you're saying, that when they're in the audition, you're hearing the character speak for the first time,
for the very first time. Yeah, because a lot of times, like I'm a writer director, and you're living with these by yourself, right? So you're in a room writing these words, and you're like, this should work in theory, and you like see it in your head, and you like hear it in your head, but there's nothing more exciting than like actually seeing it in person with a person that could fit that character, say those words for the very first time, and you have the absolute validation of holy shit, this could work, so then seeing it come together is like even more, it's like just a cherry on top type thing. So yeah. So.
And I'll leave you with one lasting thought too about costume design. When you think about a movie and its characters, an important piece of the iconography, in your memory of that film and that character, outfit, the costume, that is the most recognizable part of that character. So, for instance, we think of The Wizard of Oz, designed by Adrian, and we think of Dorothy. The first thing is, blue and white, gingham pinafore dress, red ruby slippers. And if you see somebody wearing that out on the street, immediately, they're dressed like Dorothy, Wizard of Oz.
Right.
Yeah. Or Back to the Future, right? That's Deborah Scott. Yeah.
Yeah.
Deborah L. Scott. Yes, exactly. Was a costume designer. Yeah, he's got the acid wash jeans, the red puffer vest. He's also wearing like a gingham shirt, funny enough. But yeah, I was at the Renaissance Fair 2 weekends ago, and people go and cosplay, but there was one random guy there, and I was like, Marty McFly? But it's the Ren Fair. You can wear whatever you want. But that was a little bit out there. But I was like, why did he dress up as Marty McFly?
Yeah.
But he was in that outfit. And the moment I saw the costume, I was like, yep, Back to the Future.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty Woman is those knee-high boots. Those the vinyl knee-high boots. Yeah.
Yeah.
The red, her red dress that she comes out in and stuff like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. That is one of the most lasting images. And then it's probably even one of my, like, who knows if this will ever happen, but with Ursula, we really wanted people to like cosplay as the mermaid, for example. Just like, things like that. Those are such iconic images, lasting images from the film. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's when that's almost like when you made an impact a little bit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, these characters become so endearing to the public that the only way they can like really, embody that character is to dress like them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and for instance, like The Matrix, oh my gosh, The Matrix still affects fashion to today. After that film came out, many different runway designers were inspired by the film and had collections that had PVC and leather and trench coats. So it all comes full circle.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, thank you for chatting with us and talking about this process. It's interesting because as a self-producing filmmaker, I haven't had the luxury to have a costume designer. I often have to cobble it all down together myself. So it's been fun. I also think of those things, but I can't imagine. I am sure I can imagine how satisfying it is to have somebody who that's all they hyper focus on, and all the nuances that you obviously think about that would add to a film. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because and I know we'll wrap it up. I could just talk about this all day. But yeah, for instance, is the character tidy? Are they messy? Do they keep their shoes clean, or are they a little bit dirty? They need to be thrown in the washing machine, or the laces are raveling and coming undone. It all tells something to the audience subtly about the character, or even not so subtle, just depending on how fine of a detail it is. But
yeah,
it all conveys, and even the character arc through the story is conveyed through costume.
So do you like watch people all the time, and do you like find yourself making judgments based off of like what they're wearing? Like, can you immediately tell now, like meeting regular people in life, being like, oh, you are insert whatever my judgment of you are based off of like.
Well, maybe I do it more consciously, but I think all of us across the board are subconsciously, if we're not so aware of it in the forefront of our mind, we're all affected by it. We all make judgments based on how somebody is dressed,
Right.
I'm in my 30s, but I'm often told that I look younger, and how I dress can help push that narrative or not. If I put myself in an Ann Taylor pantsuit, people are going to think I'm maybe a little bit more mature, older, hold a corporate office job, but if I go out in Doc Marten, combat boots and like a ripped, black denim skirt or leather skirt, they're going to perceive me a different way. And so dress does that for all of us. We're more affected, like the general public, we're more affected by it than we realize. So to answer your question, yes, I am always looking at people and observing people. It's not necessarily like in a judgmental kind of way. It's more of an observation. And when I'm out and I see people that are dressed interesting, I have totally approached them and said, hey, can I take your photo? Like, you're so cool or different or whatnot. I have a whole photo album on my iPhone. Called People of LA.
That's cool.
And they're just, it's constantly being a costume designer is observing the world around you and how people carry themselves through dress, whether they're a mechanic, a plumber, a CEO, they're Elon Musk, whatever, what is it about their everyday wear that puts them in this role for us? So, and then going back to talking about character arc, we see it in different films. For instance, Clueless. Everybody's familiar with the film Clueless. Ty, when we first meet her in the film, she's just like kind of, a grungy skater kid. She's wearing boys' clothes that are oversized and too big for her. She's just into the skater world, and she's not necessarily thinking about trying to look cute, and sexy. And then Cher and Dion adopt her, right? And they transform her to be in their own image. And, now she's wearing like fitted little tight shirts and little plaid skirts. But as her character evolves through the film, she realizes, she doesn't want to be an exact replica of them. She wants to stay true to her interests and passions. She's like that skater girl. But that doesn't mean she doesn't like what Ty and Dion have done. So by the end of the film, she's kind of morphed into the two. She's still dressing, like with a grunge flair to her, but she's wearing girls' clothes that more appropriately fit her body type, her body shape, that is. And so that is a clear costume arc, character arc in the film that is conveyed through costume. Yeah.
Very cool. All right.
Anyway, like I said, I could go on and on, but we'll stop.
Dude, no. It's all very interesting. And I think I think a lot of these, I would say traditionally female role. That's not right. But just like I've discovered that as an AD, when I watch directors, that the directors that aren't great are usually the ones who kind of like write off these roles. Makeup gets that. Costume sometimes gets that a lot because they're like, oh, it's like a woman's thing. And then they like don't think about it. And it's always like, you can just tell it's such a missed opportunity for them to like further tell the story. I think that's what I've noticed the ones that are doing it wrong do is that they don't put enough care into how each individual aspect of each department adds to the story.
Yes.
So it's fun for me to hear somebody who is very specialized in what they do and all of the steps and prep and background and history and education and stuff that makes them good at what they do. So
yeah, it all adds value. And when you think about costume design, it is on camera the entire time. Unless, there's nudity in the film for whatever reason. But the majority of films, 90.99% of everyone is clothed. So it is a big part of the storytelling. Definitely, 100%. And it's, like I said, it's on camera the entire time. So it can't be neglected. It can't. Costume designers are storytellers in their own right.
Agreed. Very cool. Alrighty, well, thank you so much for chatting with us. Hopefully it inspires other people who are interested in doing costumes. And if somebody were to want to follow your work or reach out to you, how would they go about doing that? Do you have a website or? Yeah.
Yes, I do. My website and my IG are the same. It's Carole Jones Design. And I spell Carole like Carole King, Carole. There's a silent E on the end, Carole. So Carole Jones Design. You can find me on IG. You can find my website on there. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, hopefully I'll get to work with you sometime. And
yes, that would be fantastic.
That would be very cool. Yes. There's nothing compared to like working with your friends who are also equally or more talented than you. I think that's the most fun. So
yeah, well, you are so passionate and so driven, and I think that's what attracted me to be your friend very much early on. I could sense that you cared so much about film and storytelling, and that's inspiring.
vice versa.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, that is it. That's the Get Realisms podcast, everybody. And tune in. We are on the YouTubes. This episode will come out on all the podcast platforms further down the line. Spotify, Apple, so iTunes, Apple Podcasts, all the things. And it will be on IG for like a few months before we take it down. So go in and listen and tell your friends about it. So getrealismspodcast.com and Get Realisms. Yes, I don't have my book with me, but do you have your book?
You know I always come strapped. I always come strapped. Get your book today, ladies and gentlemen. GetRealisms.com. Pick it up. Pick up your hat, your shirt, your book, everything. Everything you need. It's all right there. GetRealisms.com, baby.
Yes, because our goal is to demystify the filmmaking process and make it accessible to anybody who wants to be in the industry. Because when I started, that wasn't a thing. It was just like, it sounds like it was for you too, Carole. You just like fell in, didn't really know how to get into it. And you like asked people and finally got your break into it. But I want to make it very clear and obvious that like anybody who desires to be in this industry can. It just takes a lot of work. That's all.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
It's not for the faint of heart at all.
No,
and I wish I had your book when I was first on set. I was listening to the walkie trying to decipher their terminology, code words, and was just like studying the shot list, silly things like I didn't know what the martini shot meant or, POV, which is so silly because it's point of view. But those are like what seems very obvious now to somebody starting out could be like, whoa, I have just no idea. So yeah, I bought Christine's book, Get Realisms, after I met her to give to my assistant because she was green. And, I told her things myself, but seeing something written on paper, you'll put it to memory that much more. Yeah.
Cool beans.
That's what it is.
You heard it from Carole, not just me. Yeah, get your Get Realisms and follow us. And yeah, we don't know who our next guest. Actually, I think our next guest is Mai. I think next weekend it might be Mai. So
yeah, that's fantastic.
Yes.
I'll be tuning in.
Yay. But
all right.
Cool beans.
So that's it, Christine. You ready to go, or we want a couple more minutes? That's it, ladies and gentlemen. All right, getrealisms.com. Pick up your book. Pick up everything. We love you. Oh my gosh, we love you so much. Tune in next week. Bye Instagram. Bye Facebook.
Bye.
We love you. Bye now. All right.